Hi guys, how are you? We have somebody really special and who's a very important part of Tickle.life. Her name is Krys. She's a sex positive blogger. You have to check her blog, which we will talk about obviously during this video that we have. And also she's a content writer and she writes a lot of stuff, even for Tickle.life. You can follow her on Twitter, and I think almost every alternate day there's some new content that comes up and she's talking about it, so that's pretty commendable, at least for a person like me who finds it really difficult to express her thoughts while writing. So hi, thank you so much, Krys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to chat with you.
Yeah, finally. So the thing is, we have been trying to coordinate this call for a while now, and most of the time my internet would just go off. So we had our fingers crossed that we really are able to do it this time, and thankfully, I think we are. So anyways, without much ado, so Chris, what should we talk about today?
So I started a blog about 10 years ago, exploring everything to do with non-monogamy, and it ended up turning into this thing where I learned about sex positivity. I learned so much about sexuality, bisexuality, and pretty much everything to do with the non-monogamous spectrum. And I just decided that was absolutely my passion. So that's what I do. I share with people my journey, exploring all these different facets of being part of this incredible sex positive community. And it all started because I was introduced to my very first open relationship, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Were you scared?
Oh, terrified.
Yeah. So
Terrified.
how did it happen? Like how was the topic vouched, or like for people who want to try it and they're not too sure to talk to their partners? How did it happen with you?
Uh, the way it happened with me, I would not recommend to other people. I was introduced to it basically on the first date. I thought it was kind of a joke. I thought it was something that, it's okay to do when you're dating. You can date multiple people. That's all wonderful. And then I fell in love with the man and realized, oh my goodness, this is not a joke. This is his lifestyle. Uh-oh, now I've got to make some choices. But
Yeah.
I had already been so deep with him that I was like, okay, well, let's see where this takes me. And 10 years later, it's taken me on quite a few adventures.
But do you think it was a good decision?
Yes, 100%. It was a good decision. I just wish when I first knew about it that there were the resources that I'm trying to provide for people today. I didn't have access to social media. I didn't have access to blogs. I didn't have access to podcasts. I didn't have a sense of community. I couldn't ask any questions. So I basically just made it up on my own and probably spent a good 5 years, making mistake after mistake after mistake.
So what is
So
the
there is
biggest
a lot of
mistake?
that on my blog.
Yeah.
Sorry?
So what was the biggest mistake that you think you've made?
Thinking I could do it on my own. Thinking that I didn't need a sense of community, that I didn't need peer support, people to lean on when things got rough or if I had questions. That stubborn instinct that it's a relationship of one.
So do you have a friend that you talk to, or do you have a group of people who are into same kind, like they follow non-monogamy as well, or where do you go to for your mental support or your help?
Honestly, Twitter has been the best place for me because it started out as a very anonymous, safe place where I could freely ask my questions, talk, share my thoughts, and get some really honest feedback from other anonymous people. So yeah, I really, really believe that that anonymity helped me kind of branch out and get to where I am today.
So for somebody who doesn't know what non-monogamy entails, can you just explain it to that person what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Non-monogamy is basically everything outside of just being with one person. And it is a massive, massive spectrum, as I've learned. Everything from just an open relationship, a don't ask, don't tell, to swinging, to polyamory, to triads. Some people in the BDSM and kink community, they practice non-monogamy as well. Not always, but some of them. It's just a huge, huge diverse spectrum.
Oh, so like most of the time when people, now that they know that I'm working on tickle.life and I have the resources and support of all people like you, like amazing, amazing guys. So they keep on asking me question. And this is a question that has come from, I don't know how many people. What's the difference between being in an open relationship, non-monogamous relationship, or cheating?
Uh, I think the key difference for me is the ethics of it. In an open relationship, you've talked to your partner about what you're doing. When you're cheating, you're going behind somebody's back. You can cheat as somebody who is monogamous, you can cheat as somebody as open. Cheaters aren't always non-monogamous. A lot of the time, cheaters are just, they're not ethical in their relationship. They're not admitting what they want, who they want, any of those things. So they're in a place of distrust and lying. And, it's something that I try really, really hard to separate in my writing and in my social media. I don't want anybody to ever think that cheating is acceptable or permissible, that we didn't all end up in this position because we cheated first. I went into it knowing full well that this was going to be an open relationship. And there's a huge difference between like the ethics and, just being unhappy and finding a different partner, or being inebriated and doing something silly. There's a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. So what if your partner doesn't want to be in a non-monogamous relationship, but you want? What then?
It's all about communication. It's all about finding that big line and sometimes ending the relationship. Those are the tough choices. You either, there's pros and cons in every relationships, and there's compromise and give and take. And, sometimes it can take years for somebody to get comfortable with it. It definitely did for me. It took me a long, long time to, kind of understand what I was doing and be able to talk about it. And not just, kind of do it on the side, not really knowing what I was doing, and the guilt, and,
Yeah.
it feels weird. I was raised in a monogamous society, and I was like that for the first, I would say 27 years of my life. That's a huge amount of time.
Yeah.
So,
So I met somebody a few days back, and he told me that, so he's married, and he said that, me and my wife, we had this discussion, and she said, first, I don't want you to go out with someone else, but if you do, don't tell me.
mhm.
So what category would that relationship fall under?
That would be a don't ask, don't tell. And it's just on the cusp of being monogamous and non-monogamous. I've seen that work, in fact, a couple of times during my relationship, just to kind of protect myself, for my partner to keep himself protected. We had a don't ask, don't tell policy. We just, too much was going on in our career, our educational lives, and we just didn't want to have those extra conversations about other people. We were just too busy, so we did it to protect ourselves. So in our circumstance, we were still non-monogamous, but I've definitely seen a situation where the one party was convinced that they were monogamous, but if
Yeah.
anything else happened, the relationship wouldn't end as a result, as long as they kept it hush hush.
It must be very difficult.
Absolutely, none of this is easy.
Relationships are difficult as it is, but if
They
you are
are.
in a a hush hush relationship or even non-monogamous relationship, there must be a lot that goes into it. It,
so much. And it's all about laying a really, really strong foundation, being able to trust your partner, being able, even something as simple as trusting that your partner is always going to use protection, always be safe. Those are things that make it so much easier. Or if you've built in that they always have to be discreet about it and not tell all your friends and family and coworkers. Like there's just different layers.
yeah,
Um, and it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. But I will say, once you kind of get over the first few hurdles,
yeah,
it just opens up this level of communication, and it develops this solid relationship that, it's not like we have to keep having these conversations day in and day out. We've laid the foundation, trust each other, and now we can enjoy the fun of it. And that's what's really, really cool.
yeah. It's actually, it's something, because I'm not in a non-monogamous relationship, so it's something which is very exciting, but it's also something which is very scary. It's as if, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you get into it, what if you want to come back, or what if you would not be accepted? And I think, as a human, the more the imperative thing is, would you be accepted in the society? Would your friends be okay? Would your parents be okay? Would your, like, society, professionally, would everybody be okay? So how did it work with you? Do you ever feel scared? Have you ever had been shown bias because of it?
Yeah, so I've had two careers since I was non-monogamous that were not accepting. So I had to keep it completely hush hush, very anonymous. It would have definitely impacted my financial security. I'm very fortunate that that's not the case anymore.
Mm,
Um, my partner, on the other hand, he has to keep everything hush hush. It does not align at all with his professional experiences. He can be open with his friends, but he definitely cannot be open with any coworkers. I'm not friends with any of them on Facebook. Like, we keep all of that very, very separate. So yeah, it's not something that is societally accepted, and there are definitely risks. And I don't want to downplay that all. If you're a member of, let's say, a church community, or PTA, and you've got young kids, something like this coming out can be really, really damaging. We're just
yeah,
not fully accepting that in society, especially in Western society. I know in Europe it's a little bit more, it's just accepted, so why even talk about it? But
yeah.
it's still not at a place where you talk about it. It's hush hush, and it's different places around the world, right?
Yeah, and then that is what I've been telling everybody, that sexuality is so important, but we just try to keep it hush hush. We are not ready to talk about it. There have been researches, and so many, that which says that men are not supposed to be monogamous,
Yeah.
but still we are not ready to talk about it. Still we're ready,
No, exactly.
yeah,
And what does that mean? If men aren't meant to be monogamous and women are, how does that work? It
yeah,
obviously doesn't. There's more to it, right? We've evolved. There's definitely more to that story.
absolutely, absolutely. So what's happening? I actually had another question, and which has been in my head for a very long time. How do you handle jealousy? I know it's a very cliche question, but how do you really
No.
handle it?
There are a lot of schools of thought that say once you're non-monogamous, you should no longer feel jealousy. In fact, you should feel a word called compersion. And compersion is basically what the non-monogamous community has created as a opposite of jealousy. Instead of the negative feelings, you want to feel love, and you want to feel support, and you want to do all the positive things that jealousy brings you. Um, I do not subscribe to that idea. I think a little bit of jealousy is healthy. I think understanding when you're going to be jealous, and not flying into a blind rage and allowing that to overcome, is a really positive thing. And it's something that shows mature growth. I feel jealousy quite often. And when I do, my partner knows to just let me be by myself for a little bit, let me think about it, let me figure out what actually instigated the jealousy, what was the point that I didn't like, that I was uncomfortable with. And
Yeah.
sometimes it can take me a couple of days to figure it out, but then we can talk about it. And either it's going to be something that I just have to get over, or it's something that maybe he could do something a little bit different and we can communicate and talk about it. But for me, I think jealousy is just a natural part of being human. It's a survival mechanism, and it is definitely a part of my life.
And
And
how
I
do you
do
think?
feel it from time to time.
So Twitter is okay, but then how do you actually handle your jealousy? Like, you think about it, but do you talk to someone?
um, no, I used to talk to somebody, but I found that when I tell people about my jealousy, they'll actually encourage me to stay jealous. A lot of my friends, especially, are monogamous.
Yeah.
So they think of jealousy as a bigger thing. And it's like, oh, well, if you're jealous, obviously there's a reason and you should look into that. And, you know, they kind of fuel the fire a little bit. So it makes me feel worse about it.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing that. I will grab a notebook and I will write down some really angsty poetry. I know that sounds super cliche, but
Yeah.
I get it out of my system and I figure out, okay, I obviously need to vent it, but I do it in my time, in my space, and then I talk about it.
What is
And
the take
the
on?
more,
Yeah, I'm
sorry,
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
nope.
No, no, no. I'll add to whatever you were saying. You said you
Yeah,
were.
yeah, no, it's something that I deal with in my own little way. And I try to, every time it comes up, it's a little less and less intense.
And what is your take on people when they are becoming so expressive on social media, discussing about their sexuality or their tussles which they're having with themselves? How do you respond to it? Do you think it's important?
I do. For a lot of people, it's incredibly important having that outlet where you can just vent and say things that you don't actually want to say to your partner, but in the heat of the moment, you've got to get off your chest. That is incredibly healthy. Absolutely, I fully support that. I do it from time to time, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes, somehow I find it really difficult too. But I think it will be so freeing if you can just, like, type away all your angst, and the entire world can read it. They can comment on it. It will be liberating in a way, no?
It is liberating. And I think the difference is if you're doing that every once in a while and then you're taking a moment to reflect and try to change your situation and understand where those feelings came from, it's very healthy. What's not healthy is going on social media or blogging or doing this, that, or the other, where you're just constantly in rant and you're not improving things and you're not learning and you're just making the same mistakes over and over again.
That's
That's where it's
that's true.
that's more toxic.
I think, okay, not for you, but for many people, it's important to have other people around, people maybe who have the same mindset,
Hmm.
and maybe that's also the reason why they end up going to social media, because they expect that that's where we are going to find like-minded people, which otherwise we might
Hmm.
not find around.
Right.
So in a way, community is important.
Oh, 100%. I am so fortunate to have found this community that I have on Twitter and through my blog, and now through my writing on Medium and Facebook. It's I'm a big suck, and every time I get a message on Facebook from somebody I've met once or twice,
Yeah.
um, they're usually such heartfelt, like multi-paragraph private messages that I just start crying every single time. But it's really cool when you made somebody else think, or you shared
Yeah.
an experience that hits home with them.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes it all worthwhile. Bearing my soul.
I know. I completely understand what you're talking about. See, I'm not a therapist. So I've started getting a lot of messages from people who are looking out for therapy, and they expect that
Hmm.
I'm going to answer them. and I do
Yeah.
not have an answer, it just breaks your heart. Even when you're telling them, hey, if you just drop me an email, maybe I'll be able to connect you to someone. But
Hmm.
but they're just holding on to you, and they keep on asking question. Okay, just answer me one question. Like just two questions, and you just don't know. You do not know how to answer. So I
Yeah.
just, it just makes me feel that there are a lot of questions, and people are
So
not
many
able to
questions.
find, and people are not able to find answers.
No, it's a really, really tough thing to find answers. And, that's that's one of the really tough things. Like for me, it's very heartbreaking. In Canada, of course, we have free healthcare,
Yeah.
but what we don't always have free is free therapy and psychiatrists. And what's even tougher is finding sex positive therapists and psychiatrists who are trained in non-monogamy, polyamory, um, can help with those facets. So I do a little bit of coaching on the side, just one-on-one. And, if people have questions, I charge a very reasonable fee for that.
Mhm.
I'm not certified. It's just something that, people ask me so often. I just wanted to provide a
Yeah,
service that
true.
I can give them a
True.
little bit more guidance, because a lot of the time, insurance won't cover that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It won't cover that sort of conversation, then that's also a really tough thing to talk to your insurance about. Be like, hey, I need a sex positive, uh, therapist. Well, you don't want to put that in writing. You don't want your
Yeah.
HR to see that. Like it's a really, really tough situation to be in. You want specialized help, but you can't get it.
And I
Yeah,
think
you still want to keep that on the
I think that's what
down low.
I think that's what we people are here for, and I think that's what's going to happen if more and more people come together. Then somebody who's inquisitive, like I'm super inquisitive. Like every day I get to know about something new. And like I keep on asking question, what is it, how is it, and then in between, like I'll keep on sending like an apologetic message that, hey, if I'm offending you, but the thing is, like, I want to know.
Oh, I know. People ask me, how is it even possible I've been blogging for 10 years? Well, because there's so much to learn and there are so many questions to ask and so many books to read and like this has been the most incredible journey. And I'm the
Absolutely.
same way. I just love asking questions and learning more.
Absolutely. And you must have changed, if I'm not
Oh,
wrong.
absolutely.
I have changed, and I and
Absolutely.
I and I'm really thankful that this thing came into, like, Tickle.life came into my life. It has made me a much better person. You know,
Oh, and it's so cool. So cool.
yeah, if I was talking to you maybe like 2 years back, I would not have even comprehended half of what you were saying. And
Yeah.
and that's a sad part, because I'm in my 30s. I should know. You know, I'm expected to
But
know.
But why would you know that if we in the community are having troubles finding resources and people to talk
Yeah,
to and understand even what we're going through,
yeah,
I I don't think it's expected that anybody who was monogamous
yeah.
would even know where to ask or to look.
Yeah,
It's
and yeah, and the thing is, like, you don't even know if you want to remain monogamous. That's the challenge.
right, because it's not a choice. It's a
Yeah,
given. You don't have information to make a a choice one way or the other, right? Like
absolutely,
that's not the way it's designed. That's not the way our society has chosen to do things, right?
absolutely. And now, unfortunately, I hope I'm not being controversial. It's just expected that, you have to respect other people without even giving the other person an opportunity to learn about them. You know, like, um you're supposed to use certain pronouns. You're supposed to ask a person about pronouns, but 80% of the population does not even know what is happening. You know, they will just go
And
on to,
that's
yeah,
yeah, that's such an excellent point. I understand on the social media bubble,
yeah,
the pronouns being, promoted and asking pronouns on social media. But when you get out into the real world, that's not how it works. you're working with generations that,
Yeah.
haven't even heard the word they
Yeah.
or them. And they're very confused. And I mean, you can't expect change like this overnight. Like, I deal
Absolutely.
primarily with the real world. I deal off of social media. I know it doesn't always seem like it. It's like I live on social media, but I actually don't. And because my day job is in sales, I talk to people
Yeah.
all day long. it's my thing. And I I don't think it's ever come up
Yeah.
in the real world,
Yeah.
not once. And I have had at a party where one person walked up to me and was like, "Hey, would you mind if you use my pronouns?" And I was like, "No, absolutely not. That's fabulous. Thank you for telling me." And there was no, um, they weren't mad that I didn't ask first, but they were very appreciative that once they told me, I followed protocol and they didn't have to explain it. And I think that's the perfect way to move forward right now, rather than expecting that 80% of people change.
Yeah.
Having those 20% of people just be realistic about what goes on in real day-to-day
Absolutely.
world.
And I think for that, a very important thing is we have to open the world. We can't be living in silos. We can't be thinking that non-monogamous people are going to live here, monogamous people are going to talk to each other on this group. People who are into polyamorous or BDSM, they're going to talk to each other, and they're not going to let
Yeah,
anybody else come who just wants to see what's happening. We have to open up. Like,
exactly. This isn't about segregation or separating ourselves into little bubbles. This is,
yeah,
you know, just being part of the community and creating diversity within the community. And if you
yeah,
don't like it, probably doesn't affect you.
absolutely. I do remember, when I was starting and somebody told me, oh, you should be doing this for women. I was like, who's a woman? Like,
Yeah,
what do you mean? What's the definition of a woman? There's no
yeah,
definition anymore.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely. That is such a great point. That, oh, that's amazing. Like, I try to make my writing as much as I can uh, very open.
yeah,
So if
and I love
you're a
it.
monogamous person reading my stuff, you're still going to get tips and tricks or insight that could help your own completely monogamous relationship. It's not just that it's specifically geared for just a polyamorous situation or a triad or whatever the case may be. Swinging, for example, it's just about building better communication and having better relationships, whatever that ends up being for you.
Absolutely. So that is why I think I love the word fluid, because you're
Mm-hmm.
letting everybody be fluid now.
Yeah.
And I think that's how people will start understanding more. People who are even scared to know more, they will at least be in a position to get an idea. Like when you're talking about pronouns, like you just mentioned, it's because you knew about pronouns. What
Yeah.
if a person did not? That person would be like, what do you mean? And that's offensive. What do you mean? Because generally that person is just asking, like, I don't get it, so what do you mean? What does a pronoun has to do about us discussing?
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
but it's an interesting time to be alive in.
Oh, isn't it?
Yeah,
Oh, that,
absolutely. I
yeah.
was I was so skeptical and so scared before starting Tickle.live, that where will I get the right people, right collaborators? I would not, I became so desperate, and I'm not kidding. Initially, I just was introduced to two or three people. I was just after their life. Hey, can you help me? Can you help me? And they were like really busy, because I thought that's where the world ends. But actually, the world does not end there. We have more than 100 plus users, collaborators, and we've got so many more users, and everything is growing. And every day you end up finding a new person. Actually,
Oh,
they end up finding you also. And then you just realize that this environment is way big than you could have ever thought of. And you must have been
it's
going through the same
huge.
thing. Yeah. 10 years.
Oh, well, it's crazy. 5 years ago, I thought I was alone in my little city. I didn't, I just thought I was this anonymous person. And all of a sudden, I serendipitously found a couple who ended up living 5 blocks away from me,
Wow.
who introduced me to now my current group of best friends.
Hmm.
Introduced, through 1 degree of separation, I ended up meeting this incredible community of polyamorous people and swinging people, all living right in the city.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so the sense of community that this has brought is incredible, incredible.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's it's really amazing. I mean, I love talking to you, but what are your future plans? Let's talk about that.
Future plans. So I am creating a non-monogamous how-to on Medium right now. Basically, just I I want to get the information out there so people have resources that they can go to, because that's something that I did not have, and I wish I was able to ask questions and just read at my own pace and find answers to the really tough questions.
So how can people find
Um,
that on Medium?
uh,
How can they find
yeah,
that on Medium?
so I don't even know what I'm under on Medium. I am the worst for that. I
That's
do
fine.
so much writing. I don't know what any of my tags are. It took me so long to even figure out who I was on Twitter. I just write. I do these things. So
That's fine.
if you search Krys, Krys, Ghislaine, Ghislaine, my profile will pop up. I've got 4 articles on there so far. I am working on my very first book, which is basically my non-monogamous origins, kind of the backstory to my blog. So that I'm hoping will be published by mid next year. That's my target. I am constantly writing my blog and doing a bunch of collaborations with obviously Tickle.life, which is incredible, and just some various writing, talking about the non-monogamous spectrum. So as much writing as I can.
Oh my God, you're way too busy.
And I have a day job.
How? How do you manage so much?
I, you know what? You find something you love doing and it's not work.
That's true. That's true. I completely agree with you. So before we end, any parting words for people who want to try non-monogamy or who are really scared of it?
Ask questions. If you get in over your head, it's not a bad thing. It's asking questions doesn't mean you have to switch your entire life or drop the big bombshell on your partner or do all these things. You're just asking questions. I am a huge proponent of reading. Sex at Dawn was the most eye-opening book that I ever wrote or I ever read, and that just changed my perspective that life can be really fluid and you can explore and learn, and there's no judgment at all from at least my side of things. Rather you ask questions than make a judgment.
So ask questions
Ask.
and be sure that there's not going to be judgment.
No, why would there be judgment? This is a judgment-free zone. We're trying to
Absolutely.
build an ethical, sex-positive community
Absolutely.
where
And if
you're
you
welcome.
yeah, and if you have any questions, you can drop a message under this video that we would have. Otherwise, whoever wants to hire you as a coach can let us know and we will connect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love doing it. Love helping people.
Yeah. I think that's the best thing. That's good karma. But thank you so much, Krys. It was lovely, lovely, lovely having you here. Until next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.